Hello. This is What If Naruto Was the Dead Man Walking Part 3. I'm sorry for the delays as I was not feeling too well. The video will now begin.
Do not interrupt Uzumaki. Ao snapped as he glared at the blonde girl, only for Clementine to glare back, her pink eyes flashing dangerously. Their names are Raiga Kurosaki and Zabuza Momochi. I presume you know what they carry? Mei asked, looking at Naruto. The seven swordsmen of the mist? Naruto questioned. Yes, I have decided that the time is ripe to rebuild them. Kiri is stronger than it has been in decades. Our forces are battle-hardened veterans, but due to the infamy we have received from having the old outcasts clans, we are not getting as many contracts as we should be. Both Kumo and Konoha are receiving more, whilst Iwa and Kiri are trailing behind. This is not acceptable. Mei set a frown on her face. So reforming the seven swordsmen is some kind of gimmick? Naruto questioned. Yes and no, the swordsmen were a powerful fighting force, but more than that, they were also a symbol of Kiri's might. Mei explained. Okay, so you want us to hunt down and either recruit or kill the current swordsmen, but either way bring back the swords. Naruto summarized, getting a nod from Mei as he did. But wouldn't that leave us one blade short? After all, Kiri only had 4 of the blades at present. 3 of which are already in the hands of the next generation in training. Ao added in. What about the other one? Naruto asked, ignoring Ao. Samahata, currently wielded by Kisame Hashigaki. My agents are trying to get a location but have been struggling at the moment. But rest assured, when we do find him I will be sending you after him too. Mei replied, a scowl on her face as she thought about their lack of success in tracking down the rogue shinobi. Okay, sounds like a good fight. Naruto said with a grin on his face. Where do we start looking? The answer he received was 2 folders being dropped on Mei's desk by Ao. Scooping them up, Naruto nodded. We'll get to work then. But what if someone gets in our way? Depends who they are and what they are doing. Mei shrugged before gaining a hard look in her eye. But if they get in the way of your mission, terminate them with extreme prejudice. Understood. The 3 hunter nin said in unison. 5 hours later, in the land of rivers. Moving swiftly through the trees, Naruto, Clementine and Victor passed over the border of the land of rivers. None of them even paused or hesitated, used as they were to crisscrossing the borders of the elemental nations. It was part of their job as hunter nins. Really, they entered any country with impunity, their identities shielded by masks. Naruto's mask was made of a dull silver metal, painted black so as to make it less conspicuous. Unlike his teammates, his mask was completely plain, not even showing the symbol of Kiri. Though this was mainly due to the fact that if they were to get caught, their identity as a Kiri shinobi would not be revealed, and thus the village would not be impacted by one of their shinobi being found in another's territory. Victor and Clementine, though, had been far more creative when they had gotten their own hunter nin masks made. Clementine's mask, like Naruto's, was black, but unlike his, however, her mask was shaped like a laughing skull. The mouth section on the mask was wide enough for Clementine's mouth to be seen through. This had been done for an actual reason though. The laughing skull design had been done for the intimidation factor and to also put her enemies off guard. The opening for her mouth though had been done so she could use her mouth whilst in combat. Her skills and bloodline were entirely orientated to close combat, and using her mouth to rip out chunks of flesh was a part of that, plus it also completely took her enemies by surprise. Victor's mask though was as patchwork as he himself was. Originally made of black painted metal like the other 2, his mask had had other bits and pieces attached to it to reinforce different parts or to make improvement that Victor deemed necessary. This had been done with a number of different materials, which just made his mask look strange. Continuing on through the new land, they found themselves and the 3 of them came to a stop. All 3 balancing on a single branch that overlooked a collection of buildings that were in the middle of a particularly mountainous part of the region. Looking to his comrades, Naruto decided to break the silence they had been traveling in pretty much for the last 5 hours since leaving Kirigakure. This was always the way with them. When on the hunt in enemy territory, they would move in absolute silence. After all, if they did talk, they would get distracted, and all it would take is a single distraction for the enemy to take them by surprise. They had seen it personally after taking several of their targets out like this, attacking while they were talking or having a meal. They were shinobi. Things like fairness and honor were pointless in their line of work. Standing on the tree branch, Naruto and the others looked down into the small mining settlement. Naruto frowned slightly as he counted a number of thugs and bandits standing round the small settlement. The thugs currently overseeing a number of civilians, probably people local to the area, as they were forced to work, breaking up and collecting rocks from around the mine. "How many do you count?" Naruto asked, as he glanced over at Clementine. "That we can see, I'd say 11 hostiles, none of whom are shinobi, and 24 civilians." The blonde girl replied from where she was crouched down on the tree branch, her sharp eyes darting around the settlement. "Don't see our target though." Probably up top." Naruto replied as he glanced up, taking note of the wooden buildings that were further up the mountain. "What do you want to do about the thugs?" "They are in the way," Clementine said simply. "All right then," Naruto replied before he glanced over to the silently watching Victor. "Victor the First want you to kill or incapacitate all those fuckers. The civilians too if they get in your way." Victor nodded at that even as he prepared to leap off of the branch. "Sounds good, have been looking to get a new liver. Make sure to do it silently. We don't want anyone to know we are here until we want them to," Naruto added on, knowing how Victor liked to torment his victims in his wire traps. Raising his right hand and flexing the complicated metal contraption that he was wearing like a gauntlet, Victor gave Naruto a bored look. "You really can be boring sometimes, you know that? Just get it done. Make sure the lower half of the settlement is secure before you join us. I don't fancy being attacked from behind whilst we are up there." Yeah, I have done this shit before, you know," Victor said good-naturedly as he leapt from the tree branch, easily making it onto one of the nearby roofs that dotted the mining town. His hands already moving as he headed deeper into the settlement, no doubt he was planning on ghosting the thugs in the town one by one. Turning to Clementine, Naruto issued another command. "Clementine, go grab me the nearest bandit. We are going to need some more information on just what is happening here." "How many times do I have to tell you, Pain? The name is Lady Clementine? The inhuman Lady Clementine." The blonde girl replied with a slight giggle as she too leapt off the branch, traveling through the air like some kind of specter. Clementine smashed into a nearby bandit, moving so fast she appeared a blur as she knocked him into a gap between two buildings. This went completely unnoticed by the other bandits in the settlement as they continued to shout orders at their workers or laugh obnoxiously to each other. Staring into the dark gap between the buildings, Naruto watched as with a single punch Clementine knocked the plain-looking man out. No doubt also fracturing his spine as she did so, not that it mattered, as long as he was still relatively alive when she brought him to back Naruto. Grabbing the man, Clementine shunshined back to the tree Naruto was waiting in, dumping the man unceremoniously onto the branch next to Naruto as she did so. "Go do your thing, ghost boy," Clementine said as she looked expectantly at Naruto. "Funny," Naruto replied blandly as he placed his hand on the man's head. With barely a thought, Naruto pulled his hand back, pulling with it a glowing orb of blue light, one that had a number of dark speckles floating around in it. Flicking his gaze up so he was looking at Clementine, Naruto made sure to smirk, knowing she would be able to tell what he was doing even behind his mask. Before he finished pulling his hand away from the man's, he made sure to inject some of his unique chakra into him. "Oh, you are fucking asshole," Clementine muttered irritably as she ignored the now visible soul orb that Naruto was absorbing into his bare hand as opposed to being eaten, something he had learned to do over time. Instead, she scowled down at the now dead man as she saw his skin being to go gray and shrivel, even as his flesh began falling of his skeleton. Within 30 seconds, the previously healthy, if slightly overweight man now resembled an emaciated and half-rotten corpse. "Enjoy your meal," Naruto said with a grin as he closed his eyes. What have you got?"
"Bear with me for a second, you only just devoured his soul," was Yu's irritable reply, his voice echoing around in Naruto's head. Okay, the guy didn't know much, but here are his memories. He was pretty stupid, so I could only get the ones from the last couple of months. Yu continued as Naruto's other half, his secondary and inner personality, did his work, sending a number of flashing images over to Naruto. Grunting in discomfort as he slowly processed what Yu had sent him, Naruto opened his eyes again. Smirking again as he saw Clementine's masked face looking down at Pawns, for that was his name, Rotten Corpse. He could almost imagine the disappointed look on her face. "Cheer up, I am sure we can get you a nice meal later," Naruto replied as Clementine looked up at him. "You better," she replied irritably, before continuing. "So what did you get from Ugly?" Turns out that a band of thugs calling themselves the Kurisuke clan took control of the village a few months ago, and Raiga is their leader. Have to say the guy is a bit of a sick fuck. He has started to organize funerals for people who don't follow his orders, Naruto said as he drew up on the man's memories. "What is wrong with having funerals?" Clementine asked with a frown, before adding on in typical fashion. "Of course, apart from a waste of good meat? Well, it turns out Raiga buries people alive whilst crying and lamenting like some pussy as he is performing the funerals." Naruto replied with a shrug, not really that bothered about it. After all, after 3 years of fighting in a war and being a hunter nin, he was pretty desensitized to most things. Weird," the blonde replied. "What's wrong with a good old-fashioned beheading?" "No idea. Now come on, Raiga is at the top of the settlement, up there," Naruto replied as he nodded at the group of buildings further up the mountain. "He's got about 10 more guys up there, the rest will hopefully all be dead by now." "Awesome," Clementine replied unenthusiastically. "So we going to try and take him alive?" "Why bother?" Naruto replied callously. "It'll be easier if we just kill him and his followers and then take the Kiba blades." "Works for me, and you did promise me a snack," Clementine replied, her pink eyes twinkling maliciously as she and Naruto disappeared from their branch in blurs of motion, heading in the direction of Raiga. All that was left of their presence was the rotted corpse of Pawn, who even now slowly broke apart, crumbling to pieces as it fell off the tree branch and landed on the ground with a wet thump. A few minutes later. "Okay, so here is the plan. I go kill Raiga whilst you kill the others," Naruto said as he crouched alongside Clementine, both of them looking down at Raiga Kurosaki as he wept at a freshly turned grave, a number of his followers standing around him wearing funeral clothing. "They should be quite easy for you to finish off. Once you have done that, come and help me. I doubt I will need it, but it may make the job easier if we work together." "Sounds good," Clementine replied with a nod as he reached behind her back before withdrawing 2 long, needle-sharp stiletto blades. Twirling them around in her hands, she looked down on her future victims with a cat-like grin. "Try not to mess him up too much, though. We will need his head intact if we are to get his bounty money. Just make sure to finish them quickly. I want this job over quickly," Naruto replied as he glared down at Mock Funeral. "Why do you want to get back to your precious May?" Clementine mocked. "You know, you almost sound jealous," Naruto replied back, not taking his eyes away from his target, Raiga. "You wish," Clementine replied before she leapt from her position, her body blurring as soon as her feet touched the ground. Her blades held in her hands as she charged the group. Moving himself, Naruto followed Clementine's charge. As he did so, he took note of the fact that Raiga turned to face them. Something that should have been impossible considering their skill at stealth, in comparison to Raiga's recorded level as a swordsman of a mist. He elite level skill with his blades and his lightning jutsu, but in terms of his other shinobi skills he was barely Jonin level. But even so, he somehow noticed their approach. Speeding up his charge, Naruto charged straight for him, the seal tattooed on his right wrist glowing faintly, before in a small cloud of smoke his weapon appeared. It was a long-shafted war axe, made entirely out of chakra metal, something that allowed him to safely channel his chakra through it without corroding damaging the weapon. Darting forward, Naruto sidestepped as soon as he got within reach of Raiga. The man having drawn his own blades, the finely crafted twin blades sparking with lightning as he lunged at Naruto, straight away going for decapitation. Crouching down low, Naruto dodged under Raiga's swing, turning his body as he did so before he used the momentum to increase the strength of his own strike. The axe blade going straight at Raiga's left arm, the metal now glowing a faint bluish-gray color as Naruto channeled his chakra through it. It was not to be, however, as Raiga jumped backwards, avoiding Naruto's surprise counterattack with startling ease. Undeterred, Naruto took another step forward, taking a strong base as he parried away Raiga's Kiba blades, his own deadly chakra dispersing Raiga's lightning as his chakra slowly began to devour Raiga's. Twisting his wrist, Naruto did not allow Raiga a single moment as he slammed his axe down on the man, forcing him to bring his blades up in a crossguard to block him. Another twist of his wrist had the two blades caught in the inner curve of his axe. Drawing on his chakra and then channeling it into his muscles, Naruto wrenched his axe away, pulling both the blades from Raiga's grip before he raised his foot and delivered a chakra-enhanced kick straight to his gut. Tumbling back a few steps, Raiga gave Naruto a filthy look as he saw his precious blades lying in the mud a few meters away from the still waiting Naruto. His glare, however, soon faltered as he felt a burning pain from his stomach. Looking down, Raiga could see Naruto's sandal print on his stomach. His chakra-enhanced kick having rotted through his shirt and killed a patch of skin on his stomach, leaving it shriveled and gray. What the fuck? Raiga muttered as he felt the burning pain in his gut, before he looked up at the masked man in front of him. With Clementine. Letting out a laugh, Clementine continued her charge, ignoring Raiga as she trusted Pain implicitly, knowing that he had never failed her before. Instead, she focused on the surprised-looking bandits in front of her, all of whom turned in shock as she appeared in their midst. The first two unable to react as she drove the stiletto blade in her right hand through the first bandit's eye socket, killing him instantly. Her left blade slipped in between the second bandit's second and third rib, giving him a crippling wound that would lead to him having a long, drawn-out death. Or at least it would have had she not also used her right leg to shatter his knees before she crushed his head with a single stamp of her foot. Not stopping in her movements for a moment, she swung around, her now blood-soaked blade still in hand, as she easily dodged under a wild sword swing from one of the thugs before she slashed her blades out again, slitting another bandit's throat with one blade and gutting his comrade. Leaping back from the point of her first impact, a savage grin on her face, she paused a second to admire her work. 10 seconds after her first contact with the enemy and 4 were already dead, the other 6 all struggling to draw weapons or looking around in shock, trying to figure out what just happened. Crouching down so she was lower to the floor, Clementine once again charged in, covering meters in mere moments as she once again engaged her enemy. Her twin blades flashing as she hamstrung one bandit, disemboweled another, and punctured the heart of third bandit.
Twisting around, she funned both of her knives, the long blades finding their home in the throats of 2 other bandits. Standing up straight, Clementine turned around again, that maniacal grin never leaving her face as she saw that only one bandit still stood. 8 of the other thugs lying dead on the ground and a 9th screaming as he curled up in a ball on the ground, prowling forward like a predatory beast circling its prey. Clementine approached the 2 living men, her pink eyes gleaming through the eye slits in her mask. What the fuck are you?" the still-standing man gasped out as he backed away from the scantily masked woman in horror. "I'm complicated," Clementine replied, emphasizing the last word as she brought her heel down on the screaming man on the floor, shattering his spine and ending his cries of agony. "Why, you're a monster," the man cried out as he stumbled away from her in terror. "Oh, you don't know the half of it," Clementine replied before she shot forward in a blur, knocking the man's sword from his trembling hands as she sank her teeth into his neck. Letting out a moan of delight, she proceeded to rip the man's throat out, leaving him drowning in his own blood as she began to hungrily gorge herself on his flesh. Not a minute had passed since she first engaged them in combat, but in that minute all 10 men had been killed and Clementine had managed to get the snack she had been craving. With Victor. Looking around him with bland interest, the gray-haired man grinned slightly to himself as he saw the dead bodies lying around him. It hadn't been much of a fight, these men were untrained and most of them hadn't even known they were dead until they were. It did somewhat take the fun out of the fight, then again the men were thugs and bullies, so Victor did not really care whether they lived or died. Hearing a slight creak behind him, Victor leaned back as he looked to see where the disturbance came from. As he did this, he could see a number of scruffy-looking civilians looking out at him from their hiding places. Of these, one of the braver ones decided to speak up. "Are you going to kill us?" A young-looking man asked nervously as he acted as spokesman for his fellow villagers. "I wasn't planning on it, but I can do if you want me to," Victor replied in amusement, chuckling to himself as he saw the man's face go very pale at his words. "And no sir, we are fine thank you," the man replied as he hastily backed away, his fellow villagers also fleeing, probably trying to leave quickly in fear of Victor maybe changing his mind about killing them. "Ah, civilians, such cowards," Victor muttered to himself before he looked down at the scattered bodies around him, already pulling a storage scroll out from behind his back. Best get to collecting some useful body parts. He'd already been given a practical shopping list by the other members of his clan in Kiri. The demanding lot tended to give him these lists when he was going out on his hunts, so they could maintain a healthy supply of well-preserved organs and body parts in their compound. With Raiga staggering backward from the black-masked assassin who had just attacked him, Raiga clasped his left hand to his gut, channeling his chakra into that spot to soothe the pain from his semi-decay flesh. Looking warily at the man in front of him, keeping his eyes on the deadly-looking axe he had in his hand, the blade of which was now enshrouded in grey chakra. "What do you see, Ranmaru?" Raiga muttered as he took a step back, his eyes flickering to his kiba blades that lay in the mud behind his assailant. A soft voice replied back, the voice coming from the large backpack he had on his back. It hurts to look at him. He's not human, it is like he is 1,000 people in one body." "What?" Raiga muttered in shock, having never heard Ranmaru sound so confused or scared. Ranmaru shook his head from where he was nestled safely within Raiga's backpack, before he answered his red Dujitsu filled with fear as he looked in Naruto's direction. "Raiga, he is too powerful for you to fight. His chakra, it's not just his, it is like he is drawing it from hundreds of different people, all of them trapped inside him. He's a monster, Raiga. We need to run now or he will kill us, we need to flee." Raiga was about to say something in response, but before he could, he heard Ranmaru shouting a warning to him, "Raiga, he's coming, get down." Raiga through instinct did what Ranmaru said, lunging into a low crouch. Just in time to as he saw two chain that looked like they were made out of the same bluish-gray chakra his attacker used, piercing the air where he had been standing just moments ago. Rolling to the side, he once again dodged as both of them chains jabbed downwards into the ground. The grass going brown and dying upon contact with the chakra, as the earth began to crumble. Rolling to his feet, Raiga looked up in shock, only for his eyes to widen as he saw how the misty gray chains were coming from his masked attacker's back. "What the hell are you?" Raiga shouted as he pulled two kunai out of a pouch on his leg, holding them both at the ready. The only answer he received was the masked man's form blurring as he charged him. His axe swinging at Raiga even as the man's chakra chains ripped themselves from the earth and shot towards his undefended back. With Naruto. Naruto scowled behind his mask as Raiga once again seemed to almost predict his attack as he avoided both of Naruto's chakra chains, both the first strike and the second. Lunging forward again, Naruto held his axe tightly in his hands. Sidestepping, Naruto avoided two kunai that Raiga threw at him, even as he continued his attack, swinging his axe at Raiga's legs so he could cripple him. Even as his chakra chains shot towards both of Raiga's shoulders, the plan being for the chains to literally disarm him while Naruto took his legs, that way his head would still be intact so they could claim his bounty. It was not to be, however, as Raiga brought both his hands up in a hand seal, before releasing a powerful lightning jutsu at Naruto. Lightning style, lightning dragon. Pulling his chakra chain back, Naruto slammed them in front of him in the form of a cross in order to shield him from the lightning dragon. With a loud crash, the lightning jutsu struck his defense, the nature of his chakra devouring Raiga's, causing the lightning dragon to soon disperse. Sending his chains forward once again, Naruto blinked as he saw how Raiga was no longer in front of him. Hearing a slight rustle behind him, Naruto turned and saw that Raiga had gotten his hands on the kiba blades again, holding the crackling blades defensively in front of him. Lunging forward, Naruto didn't allow him a chance to properly use them, as his axe slapped one of the blades aside, leaving an opening in his defense. One that Naruto soon took advantage of as a barbed gray chakra chain exploded from his chest, impaling Raiga through his sternum, before carrying on through his body and out the other side. As this happened, Naruto heard a grunt of agony from the former member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist as his insides began to rapidly decay, form contact with Naruto's chakra. He also heard a slight whimper from behind Raiga. Closing his eyes, Naruto channeled his chakra to his own eyes before he opened them. Opening them again, Naruto found his vision changed, all the colors having been replaced by different shades of gray, as the only bright colors that could now be seen were the souls of those around him. Looking at the rapidly dying man in front of him, Naruto could see Raiga's blackened souls quite easily, but he could also see behind Raiga, nestled in his backpack, another soul, and this one much bright and purer than Raiga's. So that must be how you were seeing my attacks. Naruto muttered to himself as he ripped his chakra chain out of both Raiga and the person on Raiga's back, the both of them collapsing to the floor dead as he did so. This was not surprising considering the glowing orbs of light attached to the chain, the physical representation of their souls. Both of the orbs being absorbed into his chest as the chakra chain returned to him. Letting out a content sigh as he felt two new souls being absorbed into his body, their chakra soon being redirected into Naruto's own as Naruto's inner personality did what he did best. I hope you didn't destroy his head. A familiar voice suddenly spoke out. Looking up, Naruto saw a bloody Clementine approaching him, with a content-looking Victor following behind her. No, the head is fine, and the kibas have now been recovered. Naruto replied as he stopped channeling chakra to his axe, before using it to behead Raiga. The axe was soon sealed back into his wrist tattoo after that. Do you have a spare scroll for the body and the blades? Nah, sorry, mine are all full up with spare parts. Victor replied nonchalantly as he looked around him, a look of interest on his face as he saw the savaged corpses of the bandits that had helped Raiga. Wow, you made a real mess of these guys, Clementine. Lady Clementine. The blonde replied absently as she checked her own storage scrolls that were kept on a small pouch on her thigh. Yes, I do have a spare, was hoping to fill it with some spare meat, but I already have 2 scrolls full, so my larder is pretty stocked. Good. Naruto replied as he took the proffered scroll, quickly getting to work in sealing up Raiga's head and Kiri's precious kiba blades. With that done, Naruto then used his foot to kick Raiga's body over, so it was now lying on its front. What are you up to now, ghost boy? Because I will tell you right now, I am not going to take a bite of that mess, especially not after your nasty chakra rotted him inside and out. Clementine asked as she looked at what Naruto was doing curiously. Try thinking with anything other than your stomach, cannibal. Naruto replied absent-mindedly as he reached down and ripped the backpack of Raiga's back, the material tearing away to reveal a frail-looking boy on his back. The boy was dead, his eyes glazed in horror as they stared straight ahead. Turning his body, Naruto looked closely at his dead eyes, taking note as he did of the chakra that was slowly flowing out of them, his body no longer constantly providing it now he was dead. This kid had a jujutsu. Naruto said with a frown as he looked up at his team. Maybe some kind of variant of a Sharingan or a Byakugan, I am not sure. Either way, it allowed him to see through this bag in all directions and help Raiga in tracking my movements and predicting my attacks. Sounds interesting. Victor said, approaching Naruto, taking his mask off as he did. Might be worth harvesting them. My thoughts exactly, my implanting them in another Kiri shinobi once we have found out what they do and how they work. Naruto nodded along as he laid out the sealing scroll in his hand and proceeded to seal Ranmaru's remains up. How much room is there left in that scroll? Clementine asked with a frown. We'll need it to store Zabuza's head and sword. Should be plenty of room left, though I might just seal the Kiba blades and Zabuza's sword in these bad boys. Naruto replied as he gestured at the tattooed Fuinjutsu kanji on his wrists. Permanent seal kanji that allow him to seal his weapons etc. at will. Sounds good. Victor said with excitement, his eyes fixed on where Ranmaru's body had been, his eyes gleaming with barely suppressed curiosity about what secrets his body might hold. Can we get a move on? It's starting to stink around here. Clementine interrupted, her heightened senses making it so the stench of Raiga's decaying body almost overwhelmed her. Don't be so soft. Naruto replied as he raised his hands before releasing 3 more chakra chains, the thick gray blades wrapping around Raiga's body. Within seconds the intensity of the chakra Naruto's unique chains were emitting turned Raiga's body to dust, as it caused it to decay to a cellular level. Unfortunately for Clementine though, at the moment when Naruto dispersed his chains, a wind picked up, blowing up the dust that was Raiga straight into Clementine's face. For fuck's sake! Clementine shouted as she started hacking and coughing. I really fucking hate you sometime. Naruto and Victor both just laughed at that. Come on then, we better set off. Zabuza is over in the land of waves at the moment. Working for some shipping magnate called Gatu. Naruto said as he started moving, the others quickly following after him. Within a matter of minutes the area was empty, leaving behind only silence and the dead and mutilated bodies of those who had gotten in the way of their hunt. 2 days ago in Konoha. Sat comfortably in his chair in the Hokage's tower, a pensive Minato namikaze looked out across the village he loved. 3 years, it had been 3 years since his eldest son had disappeared. 3 years since the trail had gone cold, had he been kidnapped or had he run away? The evidence all pointed to him having run, no doubt after feeling oppressed by his and Kushina's concerns over his health. Something Minato had come to regret. After all, a part of him knew that they had handled the situation wrong. They should have allowed him to become a shinobi, certainly not a combat-orientated shinobi, no, he was too weak and frail for that. Also not an interrogator, he did not have the constitution to force the answers out of people. But maybe a Konoha-based medic nin, someone devoted to healing, that way he would have worked in the hospital in a safe and controlled environment. But such thoughts were pointless, he couldn't change what had been, instead he could only look to the future and hope that somewhere out there his son was alive, living a safe and happy life. That was the best he could hope for. In the 3 years that had passed a lot had happened. His wife Kushina had given birth to another daughter, little Naruko, named in honor of their missing son. Minato also believed that it helped to fill the hole left in their hearts. Naruko was their precious daughter, but she was also her own person, she was not a replacement for Naruto. But even so, the joy she brought to their household managed to make up for the pain Naruto's absence had caused. Aside from the birth of the newest member of the Namikaze clan, his 2 daughters had enrolled and subsequently graduated from the Shinobi Academy. The both of them having finished at the top of their year, with Urza just beating Mito out for Kunoichi of the year. Urza after graduation had been approached by Yugao, who had taken time out of the ANBU just so she could take Urza on as a student. Apparently her natural talent with kenjutsu had not gone unnoticed by those detailed to protect the Hokage and his family. Urza of course was given a choice of whether or not to accept the solo apprenticeship like several others had in the past, or reject it and join a team as was tradition. Urza of course chose the apprenticeship and had for the last 3 months been working tirelessly under her new sensei. An apprenticeship might be a rare honor, but it was not easy, it was in fact much harder work than being on a team. But Urza had earned it through her own accomplishments, no one could deny that. Mito however had been given no such offer. After all, she mainly focused on Fuinjutsu, which she could ask her mother and father for help with at any time. She had of course asked her mother Kushina about an apprenticeship with her, but Kushina had had to refuse. After all, she had Naruko to look after and her own shinobi work to do, minor though it currently was. Mito had taken the rejection gracefully, knowing full well that both her parents would help her if she needed it. So instead of an apprenticeship she had gone on to join Team 7, a team made up of Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno, a team that mostly work well together, apart from a bit of tension between Mito and Sakura. It was at the thought of Sasuke Uchiha that Minato frowned. What had happened to the Uchiha clan was truly a tragedy. Things should not have gone down like they did. But unfortunately they had. His investigation into the matter had soon revealed the culprit behind the shambles, Danzo Shimura. Suffice to say the man was now dead and his root forces destroyed the agents either dead or rehabilitated. The man's passing had not been pleasant either, as Minato had personally led a coalition of ANBU and elite jonin on a mission to arrest Danzo before stripping every secret he had from him. His position as the Hokage's advisor was meaningless to Minato as he had the War Hawk's mind brutally ripped apart as his every lie and secret was revealed. Even now, 3 years later, they were still sorting through all of the man's deceit. Even if that meant covering up any involvement Konoha might have had when necessary, or terminating any loose ends that might point to Konoha. It had been hard work and had left many dead. Fortunately though, some good had come of it as they released some of the information out to neighboring shinobi villages, building better ties with them. The Hidden Mist being one such village they were now on at least amiable terms with. The new information had also led to the destruction of at least a dozen of Orochimaru's facilities and the termination of many of his experiments and henchmen. Though the man himself was still not found, neither was his full network, which was concerning. Especially considering information Jiraiya had recently brought to him about a new shinobi village called Otogekure being created and a band of rogue power unknown shinobi calling themselves the Akatsuki becoming more prominent. Any other thoughts he might have had were soon ended as he heard a knock on his door, turning round in his chair and ignoring the shifting of his hidden ANBU who were hiding around the room. Minato instead just called for whoever it was to enter. As the door opened, Minato's previously pensive mood brightened considerable as he saw the familiar face and the large smile of his daughter Mito. The girl stood at barely 5 foot and was wearing blue shinobi sandals, black knee-length leggings, a mesh shirt and a light blue-colored battle dress. Around her waist she had a thick black belt that held a pouch which were her kunai, shuriken and other standard shinobi equipment. The belt also had a number of rolled-up scrolls slotted into it. No doubts they were finished scrolls that held fuinjutsu she could utilize whilst on a mission. Alongside his now teenage daughter was also the last loyal Uchiha, the raven-haired boy having a bored look on his face as he entered. His posture showing that he found everything around him tedious and that he thought he had better things to do. Besides him was the young Sakura, a pink-haired girl around his daughter's age who wore a similar garb to Mito, although without the belt of fuinjutsu supplies and with a red dress. Looking at how similarly they were dressed, a part of Minato wondered whether they had coordinated their fashion choice today, or whether it was just a coincidence. Either way he ignored it as he instead focused on their sensei and his former student Kakashi. And how was Team 7's most recent mission? Minato asked with a barely contained smirk as he saw a dark look appear on the faces of the 3 young genin. Deep down Minato delighted in small childish displays like this from new genin as it showed him how much things had changed. As during the Third Shinobi War, children younger than those standing before him were already battle-hardened soldiers. Them having missed out on their childhood due to the war, looking at the newer generation now he could only smile at how happy and carefree they were. Sure, they would have to grow up very soon now they were shinobi, but for the moment it was nice to see that they had at least enjoyed having a childhood. It went well, Lord Hokage. Kakashi spoke up for his students, a smirk hidden behind the half-moss he wore on his face. Well, let's see what else we have in the way of D-ranks today. Minato replied with a slight smile as he looked over to the stack of scrolls piled up on his desk. No! Sasuke declared, no more chores. Kakashi says we are ready for a C rank. I am done doing these chores for those too lazy to do it themselves. Yeah, come on Dad, we've been genin for almost 3 months now, isn't it about time we have a proper mission? Mito shouted out, agreeing with Sasuke as she looked at her father expectantly. Hey now my cute little students, you know that missions are broken up by experience and difficulty, there is a reason you genin mostly take D-rank missions. Kakashi replied nonchalantly, not really that bothered either way what missions his team did. I don't care, I want something other than those damn D-ranks. Sasuke said again, a scowl on his face as he looked expectantly at the Hokage. Mito though didn't back him up this time as she saw the emotionless look on her father's face as he looked at them from behind his desk. Kakashi, do you really think they are ready? Minato asked seriously as he eyed the Jonin. Kakashi looked thoughtful at that before he nodded and let out a sigh before replying, I believe they are. Very well then, since your sensei thinks you capable, I have a C rank which should suit your team rather well. Minato replied as he reached for a recent request that had just come in, a simple protection job for some bridge builder in the End of Waves. Looks like you will be going to the Land of Waves.
Now with Team 7. Very well then, since your sensei thinks you capable, I have a C rank which should suit your team rather well. Minato replied as he reached for a recent request that had just come in, a simple protection job for some bridge builder in the End of Waves. Looks like you will be going to the Land of Waves. It was later, during the afternoon, that Mito felt a slight disturbance with her sensory abilities. Looking around her, she scrunched up her in confusion as she could clearly feel two people with high reserves of chakra nearby. High reserves of chakra could normally only mean one thing, and that was other shinobi. What was more concerning for Mito was that these shinobi were stationary, lying in wait, and due to their proximity she could only conclude that they were lying in wait for her and her team. With that, Mito's pace slowed slightly as she concentrated the two chakra sources. Her blue eyes flickering side to side as she looked for where these shinobi might be hiding. Noticing her pace slow, the other members of her team also naturally slowed down a bit, so they remained in the same formation. Sasuke and Sakura, her teammates, shot her questioning looks at her actions, something she ignored as she instead looked over to Kakashi wondering if he too could sense the nearby shinobi. The gray-haired man didn't even look up, despite the fact Mito knew that he knew she was trying to get his attention. Instead, he just continued to casually walk down the road, his pornographic little book in hand as he did so. Looking forward once more, Mito's eyes narrowed as she noticed two puddles lying innocently in their path. They were small, innocuous little things, pools of water that Mito under normal circumstances would just walk by not even noticing them. But with her sensory abilities, an ability she inherited due to her uzumaki heritage, and probably enhanced by the bija she knew she had sealed in her gut, she knew that something was not right. Those puddles were emitting chakra, and also a little bit of bloodlust. Reaching slowly for the pouch attached to her belt, Mito very carefully drew two kunai. Making sure to do it in a way that would not attract attention, these innocuous puddles were not simply innocent pools of water, no, they were a genjutsu, a subtle illusion hiding two shinobi who were lying in wait. Looking once more over at Kakashi, Mito frowned as once more it didn't look like he had noticed. Continuing on next to Sasuke, Sakura, and Tazuna as they walked right past the puddle, none of them sparing it a glance at the two hidden shinobi, Mito caught a glimpse out of the corner of her eye of Kakashi glancing ever so slightly at the puddles as she passed. Seeing this caused Mito to let out a slight sigh of relief. At first she had thought she had been the only one to see it. But if Kakashi had seen it, and he hadn't said anything to any of them, then maybe it was just a test, or maybe they were supposed to be there. It was as Mito was thinking that thought that she felt the sudden spike of chakra as two men appeared behind his team, bursting forward from where the puddles had previously been, each a little farther back and to the side of where Kakashi was currently stood, just behind the rest of their group. Mito's eyes widened in shock as she noticed the look of surprise on the Jonin's face as two serrated chains wrap around him. Whirling round her kunai already drawn, Mito's face showed her own confusion over the situation. She had been sure that Kakashi had noticed them, but the look of surprise she saw on his face did not look fake. One down. Their two attackers said as the three Genin's eyes widened and the chain wrapped around Kakashi suddenly squeezed, sending bloody scraps of Kakashi splattering across the path. Kakashi! Sakura yelled as she broke the group's formation and began backing away, her eyes locked on the two men who were attacking them with abject fear in her eyes. They got sensei! Sasuke, though like Mito, was already in motion, drawing a shuriken and kunai knife. He tossed the shuriken at a tree as he launched himself into the air. Tazuna, the bridge builder they were supposed to be protecting, backing away in horror at what he saw. Dashing towards their attackers with Sasuke at her side, hoping to make up for Sakura initially breaking the formation, Mito noticed that both of their attackers had breathing masks on their faces covering their mouths, noses and chins, with scratched forehead protectors resting across their foreheads with metal attachments that looked like horns. One had spiky hair while the other's hair fell across his head closely resembling a mop. They both had chunin flak jackets, symbolizing their rank, and camouflage pants leading down to their shinobi sandals. The most glaring object on the both of them, though, was the clawed metal gauntlets they were both wearing that had a chain connecting the two of them. Mito held back a moment as she saw Sasuke's shuriken slam into a tree, piercing one of the links in the chain that connected the two men to the tree as well. Sasuke reached a certain height and flung his kunai knife just as the two men began to rush forward. 2 down. The same man from before said as both he and his companion released the chain connecting them before they rushed Sasuke, aiming to kill him whilst he was off guard from throwing his shuriken. They didn't get that chance though, as Mito chose that moment to strike. Using her small size and speed, she managed to get within the guard of the first attack. Dodging under his clawed gauntlet, she slammed her small but powerful fist into the man's sternum, knocking the air out of his lungs with the blow. As the man staggered backwards, Mito followed up with a slash of her kunai, aiming for the man's throat. But by then the man had recovered enough to jump backwards. This led to the blade missing its target and instead slicing through his shirt and giving him a small cut on his chest. "Bitch!" The man grunted as he lunged forward again, ignoring how his companion had now engaged the young uchiha in a fight, the two giving out and dodging blows as they darted around. Raising her now bloody kunai, Mito brought her other hand up, creating a cross-shaped hand seal, as she used a favorite jutsu of hers, one that her mother had taught her and her sister due to their excessive amount of chakra. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Around her 5 exact copies of Mito appeared, all 5 of them crouched low, identical kunais held in their hands as they kept their sharp eyes on their attackers. None of them had a chance to attack though, as with a swirl of wind a completely uninjured Kakashi revealed himself. The gray-haired man making a suitably dramatic entrance as he landed on Sasuke's attacker, sending him crashing into the ground, before he darted forward in a blur and smashed into Mito's attacker, knocking him down and out with a single blow. Well, that could have gone better, Kakashi said as he looked around at his students. Sakura, you broke formation and ran away. Mito, you did not think to warn your teammates that there was a nearby threat, and Sasuke, you did not bother to inform the others of your plan. You just acted without thought of the consequences. Sasuke scowled at that before he looked away, glaring off into the distance. Sakura seemed to shrink in on herself and avoided making eye contact with anyone else. Mito, however, scowled at Kakashi before speaking up. I saw that you had also seen it, sensei, and because of your lack of reaction or the fact you didn't inform the others, I didn't either. Ah well, you should always share information, as you never know when it may be useful or even save a life. That being said, I can understand why you wouldn't have in this scenario. Kakashi replied a little bit nervously as he realized why Mito hadn't informed the others. But anyway, the good points were that both Mito and Sasuke took the initiative when they thought had been killed. Speaking of initiative, Mito and Sasuke, can you secure those two so the ANBU can pick them up for interrogation later? Kakashi said as she gestured to the 2 groaning missing Nins. Both Sasuke and Mito nodded as they got to work on disarming and then tying up their 2 attackers. Mito making sure to put one of her own Fuinjutsu seals on the men that would restrict their chakra, stopping them from escaping from their bonds. While this was happening, Kakashi continued, speaking as I was saying before, excusing your initial mistakes, you lot did quite well in the end. These guys are Chunin level shinobi formerly from Kirigakure, and they are known for not giving up when fighting. Now the question is why 2 shinobi attacked us whilst we are on a simple bandit protection mission. Kakashi finished as he looked over at the client Tazuna. Tazuna paled and nodded as he saw the dangerous look in Kakashi's eye, and also how the red-haired girl and the black-haired boy were also looking up at him from where they were securing their attackers. It's true, this mission is probably more than what you knew about, but I had no choice. I have a super bad guy coming after me. His name is quite famous, Tazuna said as he raised his hand defensively in front of him. Who? Kakashi questioned, a curious look in his eyes. The wealthy shipping magnate, Gatu. Tazuna said with a tired and exhausted sigh, seeming to shrink into himself at just the mention of the man's name. The same Gatu who is said by many to be one of the wealthiest men in the world. Kakashi asked with slight surprise, his mind already spinning at what this could mean. A man as rich as Gatu would likely have a lot of muscle to back him up, that included shinobi muscle.
Tazuna nodded. Yes, legally, he owns and manages a shipping business.
But illegally, he sells drugs and other illegal items to others and uses ninja and gangs to take places over. About a year ago, he set his sights on our small country and quickly took control over all of our shipping companies.
He has complete control over what enters and leaves the country. The only opponent to his control is the completion of my bridge. Tazuna said, and he was right, his control over Wave was complete due to his control over who can enter and exist and what they can and cannot take with them. Tazuna's bridge though would break this monopoly. So, you're in the way? Mito asked. That's why he is sending shinobi after you, to kill you so you can't break his hold on Wave? Tazuna nodded. We aren't a wealthy country. Even the feudal lord isn't that rich. We didn't have the funds necessary for an expensive B rank. I could only afford a C rank mission,
he said before adopting a slightly pathetic look on his face.
But if you quit now, I will definitely die. It won't be a problem. It's only that my super cute little grandson will cry for days when he finds out, he said as he let out a loud fake laugh, and my super beautiful daughter will just hate Konoha Shinobi forever, but it won't be your fault.
Not at all, he said as he turned away from them with a knowing gleam in his eye. Kakashi looked at the man with a deadpan expression even as he felt the expectant expression on the faces of his students as they all looked to him. Kakashi sighed at that, knowing that they wouldn't leave him alone until he accepted. Rolling his eyes, he said, well, I guess we can escort you to your country. What Kakashi neglected to say though, was that if he deemed his students to be in danger he would happily abandon the mission and leave Tazuna to his fate. The lives and well-being of his team superseded a lying client any day. Grinning slightly at the thought of the exciting mission to come, Mito joined the rest of their team as they set off heading in the direction of the coast, where they would be meeting a friend of Tazuna's who would take them over to the island of Wave. The part of the coast they were headed to was a popular crossing point, as it was at this point that the island of Wave was closest to the elemental nation's mainland. Barely an hour later, with Naruto leaping silently from tree to tree, Naruto, Clementine and Victor made great speed as they moved parallel to a dirt road. They were headed for the nearby coastline, the point at which it was easiest to cross due to how close the island of Wave was to the mainland at that point. It was so close in fact that a shinobi could use water walking and run the distance. This was much better than if they had used another point along the coast, as then they would have had to run across the water in 2 stages due to the chakra usage and continuous amount of control needed. The silence they were traveling in was soon broken by Clementine. The blonde girl came to a sudden stop on a nearby branch, causing both Naruto and Victor to come to a stop too. What's up?
Naruto asked instantly, knowing Clementine wouldn't just stop for any reason. Shinobi up ahead.
Clementine, her eyes narrowed as she glared forward.
2 of them and they're not moving. Some kind of ambush?
Naruto asked as he unsealed his axe, the comforting feel of the axe in his hand helping him focus as he closed his eyes, channeling his chakra to them before opening them again. As he did so his crimson irises glowed slightly. Looking in the direction Clementine was, almost everything appeared in shades of gray, everything of course but the souls of the living. Flicking his eyes back and forth, Naruto dismissed some of the smaller glowing blue shapes that ran around the forest, birds, hares, foxes. Looking up ahead though he could see 2 larger shapes in the distance. These ones were in the shape of men, they glowed brightly showing that they had more chakra than an average human and they had dark flecks floating around in them, something that usually signified shinobi. Something was a bit strange though, he also could see a small black seal on their glowing chests, and the seal seemed to be restricting the men's chakra. Closing his eyes again, Naruto stopped channeling his chakra to them. This meant that when he opened them his vision returned to normal. Looking over to Clementine he spoke. You're right, 2 shinobi about mid-chunin level in strength, though from the looks of it someone has stuck a seal on them, stopping them from using their chakra.
So not an ambush then?
Victor concluded as he looked from Naruto to Clementine.
What do we do?
We question them, of course, find out what happened, and if they have a bounty we take their heads, if not.
Naruto replied, a thoughtful expression on his face. We kill them anyway, remember no witnesses if possible. Sounds good. Clementine said as she once again set of moving, both Victor and Naruto following after her. Soon enough they made it to the two incapacitated shinobi, all here of them appearing in front of the tree the two were tied to. Well, look at our luck. Naruto spoke out as he looked down at the tied-up shinobi. If it isn't the demon brothers, what are Zabuza's little bitches doing so far away from their boss? The brothers glared up at Naruto for that comment but otherwise stayed silent. Looks like we hit the jackpot. These two will have plenty of information about Zabuza and what he's up to. Plus they each have a bounty on their heads. It's not much, but it will at least pay for a few rounds at Mina's place. Naruto continued as he looked down at the two men. We aren't telling you fuckers anything. You might as well just kill us. One of the brothers snarled, the other one just stoically glaring up at them. It's a good thing then that we don't need you to cooperate then, isn't it? Naruto replied before without any warning he swung his axe, beheading both shinobi at the same time, their heads hitting the ground with a dull thump, a shock expression on each of their faces. As Naruto did that, two chakra chains burst out of his left palm, slamming into the now headless demon brothers' chests before Naruto ripped them out. His chains wrapped around both of their souls as he retracted them, absorbing both of their souls as he did so. Collapsing in on themselves, both of the soon disintegrated, the restriction of their chakra making it so they had absolutely no protection against Naruto's own deadly chakra, which meant that after a few seconds all that was left of the demon brothers of the mist were their heads, and a pile of grey dust. Fucking cowards. Naruto muttered contemptuously as he looked down at their severed heads. Well shit, what crawled up your arse and died? Clementine asked, her pink eyes slightly wide as she saw how brutally Naruto ended the incapacitated brothers. They were traitors, they abandoned Kiri and the rebellion first chance they got. They didn't even look back. Naruto replied as he closed his eyes and contacted you, absorbing the memories that were recovered from the devoured soul. They were getting better at it, being able to get more and more from the souls. Soon enough Naruto was hoping that they would be able to absorb all of a shinobi's memories, but that was a way off at the moment.
Good point. Victor replied, nodding along with Naruto. He too had also heard of the brothers. They had fled Kiri with Zabuza soon after the swordsman had tried to assassinate the Mizukage. He had of course failed and run off, fleeing the land of water as fast as he could. The brothers had merely followed him, only they had never taken a stand. Instead, they had run out of fear. Still seems a bit much. Clementine added in. Tell me, are you so pissed off because they betrayed Kiri, or is it because they betrayed Mei? Turns out the sources were right. Zabuza is in the land of Wave, working for that Gato. But apparently he has an apprentice. Some girl who thinks it is fun to play dress-up by pretending to be a hunter-nin. Naruto said as he crouched down and sealed up the demon brothers' heads. It also appears that the bridge builder, this Tazuna, has some shinobi protection. Naruto frowned deeply as he said that the memories he had seen had him concerned. Anything that we should be worried about? Clementine asked as she stopped her teasing, sensing his discomfort. Maybe. Naruto replied, still frowning as he focused on the memories he had received. He recognized 3 of the 4 shinobi protecting Tazuna, and he was for once unsure on how to act. The bridge builder is guarded by the copy ninja Kakashi Hatake and his genin team. The team includes Mito Namikaze, Sasuke Uchiha, and some no-named girl who I don't recognize. Sounds like trouble. Victor replied, a thoughtful expression on his face. What, seriously? Clementine asked incredulously. Kakashi may be tough, but the 3 of us together are more than enough to take him. As for the genin, they wouldn't stand a chance. We could butcher them with ease. No. Naruto snapped harshly as he turned to Clementine, the blonde-haired girl's eyes widening as she heard the dangerous note in Naruto's tone. Letting out a sigh, Naruto forced himself to calm down. It is more complicated than that. These aren't just any shinobi, they have connections. Mito Namikaze is the daughter of the 4th Hokage, whilst Sasuke Uchiha is the younger brother of Itachi Uchiha. In reality, Naruto would not really care if he had to kill Kakashi. He had never really interacted with the man. As such, he didn't really care whether he lived or died. The same to a certain extent could be said for Sasuke. Naruto didn't really know the boy, but he did know his brother Itachi. He also knew that there was something odd about the Uchiha massacre. Itachi wasn't the type of person who enjoyed suffering or taunting his enemies. So then why would he leave his brother alive, unless he had a specific reason for sparing him? What that reason was Naruto didn't know, but what he did know is that he wouldn't want Itachi as an enemy. As for Mito, he would not allow anything to happen to the girl. She was his sister, and he loved her. This meant that even if he had to fight his own team off, he wouldn't allow anything to happen to her. Though hopefully it wouldn't come to that, as he loved and trusted his team implicitly just as they did the same for him. The pink-haired girl, whoever she was a nonentity. Naruto wouldn't care what happened to her. I doubt Itachi Uchiha would really care about what happens to his brother, considering he massacred his entire clan. Though I do see your point about the fourth Hokage. Even all three of us going all out wouldn't stand a chance against him. Victor added in with a sagely nod to Naruto. Yeah, right, I will agree with that too. Clementine also said even if it was grudgingly. But then what do we do if these Konoha tree huggers interfere in our mission? Simple, if they don't interfere, we leave them alone. If they do interfere, we do as May said, we neutralize them. Though I warn you now, the red-haired girl and the black-haired boy are not to be harmed. Well, the black-haired boy can be harmed, just not too badly. Well, okay, as long as you leave him alone, that is fine. Naruto replied with a shrug, making his order clear for his teammates. Mito is off limits, the others are free game, but only if they interfere. What the fuck is it with you and redheads? Clementine asked irritably, even as both she and Victor agreed to do as he said. Naruto had never steered them wrong before, and they very much doubted his caution over this Konoha team was unwarranted. I don't know what you mean. Naruto sniffed, looking away from Clementine as he did so. She does have a point. You do seem to have an unhealthy fascination with our Mizukage, and now with the namikaze girl. Victor added in with a slight grin at Naruto's discomfort. I do not have an unhealthy fascination with the Mizukage, we simply have a good working relationship. Naruto replied irritably as he jumped up into the trees, not even dignifying the comment about his sister with a response. Ha! Good working relationship, she pretty much lets you get away with murder. Seriously, the way she dotes on you sometimes makes it seem like the two of you are banging. Whilst you are always getting pissed off whenever anyone says anything negative and are like obsessed with following her rules. Clementine mocked as both she and Victor followed Naruto into the trees. I am not having relations with the Mizukage. Naruto shouted in response before adding on a barely heard. Unfortunately at the end. Oh, and Clementine, you do know May is our Mizukage, you are supposed to follow all her orders and defend her. It is kind of our jobs as Kiri shinobi. Naruto added on with a deadpan. Yeah, shut up, I know that. Clementine responded even as she stopped mocking Naruto. Well, at least now she does. Victor cackled as the table turned on Clementine. Oh, go steal a dick. Clementine shouted in response. Why don't you go eat a dick? Victor snapped back with a grin. You offering? Clementine replied slyly as she bared her teeth at her two male teammates. Instantly the both of them flinched as their hands moved to cover their privates. With Team 7. Everyone remain vigilant, we are in hostile territory now. Make sure you all remain in formation around Tazuna. Kakashi said as his team formed back up around Tazuna before they set off heading inland and in the direction of where Tazuna had said his house was. Mito was using her sensory abilities almost constantly as she moved with her team. Kakashi had made to impress upon them all just how serious the mission was whilst they were traveling on the boat. They had been traveling for about 20 minutes before Mito sensed something. With barely a thought, she quickly took out a shuriken and tossed it into the bushes. Even as she signaled for her team to come to a halt, her sensory ability had picked up a chakra signature on the edge of her range. This time she was taking no chances. She was going to make sure every member of her team knew what was happening. Stalking forward and pushing the bushes aside, she looked to see what she had hit. Instead of a person like she was expecting, she instead saw a dead rabbit, her shuriken lodged in its throat. "Mito, look what you have done!" Sakura yelled as she rushed forward, breaking formation as she headed for the rabbit. Mito, however, ignored her violet eyes instead looking around the silent forest. She could still sense the chakra presence, but couldn't quite triangulate on where it was. Closing her eyes, she tried to extend her senses, pushing her abilities further than she had before. Opening them again, a look of shock on her face, she looked to Kakashi. She had sensed the chakra she was searching for, but she had also sensed the very distant presence of 4 more chakra signatures. That bunny is white, but it's spring. The coat should be brown. This has been kept in a cage to be used for a substitution jutsu. They're already here. Kakashi thought to himself, oblivious to what Mito had just sensed as he began sense around for chakra, though his abilities were a lot weaker than Mito's. "Sakura, get back in formation," Kakashi called out even as he tried to sense for an enemy. "Kakashi-sensei," Mito called out, ignoring Sakura as she tried to get Kakashi's attention. "There is a powerful chakra signature nearby and 3 others, though they are further away." Kakashi's eye flashed to Mito at that, knowing for a fact that her sensory skills were better than his. He almost cursed himself as he heard that there were 4 possible enemies coming after Tazuna. Before he could reply, though, both he and Mito spun around, both looking at a tree branch before yelling simultaneously, "Down!" Hearing the command, 5 people instantly hit the ground, with Sakura being dragged by Mito since she was worrying over the dead rabbit. They were all lucky they did too, as all of them managed to narrowly avoid being hit by a huge flying sword that had just embedded itself into another tree just behind them. Looking up, Mito, Kakashi, and Sasuke all noticed that there was another in their presence as they instantly jumped back to their feet. The man had spiky black hair with a scratched Kiri forehead protector, signifying that he, like the 2 who attacked him before, was a missing nin from Kirigakure. He had bandages wrapped around his mouth which extended to his neck. He wore no shirt, leaving his torso exposed to the elements, but on his legs and arms were long arm and leg warmers. He wore striped shinobi trousers that disappeared under his leg warmers and then gave way to his black shinobi sandals. Looking up, Mito forgot about the other chakra signature, drawing closer as she instead took stock of the man's before her and just how much chakra he had. It was just as much, if not more, than her sensei, Kakashi. For a moment she began to take a step back, slightly cowed by the amount of chakra his man was giving off. But then she found her resolve. She was Mito fucking Namikaze. She was the daughter of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, the sister of Naruto, Urza, and Naruto Namikaze. She would never back down. With her resolve hardened, Mito drew her kunai, even as she summoned 9 shadow clones, 8 of the clones taking up a defensive position around Tazuna as they did so, whilst the remaining clone dragged Sakura back into the defensive formation. "Sasuke!" Mito called to the shocked-looking Uchiha. "Get back into formation." The raven-haired boy glared at her for giving him a command, but still did it anyway as he backed away from the man until he too had joined the diamond-shaped defensive formation around Tazuna. Whilst this was happening, Kakashi had narrowed his eyes at the newcomer as he heard how Mito took control of the team. "Good job, Mito," he thought as he continued to glare down the shinobi who had thrown the sword, his fingers twitching as he prepared to leap into action at any moment. "Zabuza Momochi, missing nin of Kirigakure, this man is on a whole other level. Get back and protect the client," he said to his team as he faced his opponent, his bored act dropping as he prepared himself for the fight to come. "Kakashi no Sharingan, the copy ninja of Konoha." The man said to have copied over 1,000 jutsu. "No wonder, I doubt the demon brothers even stood a chance. But, the bridge builder is mine, Kakashi," Zabuza replied as he looked down on the Konoha shinobi from his perch in a tree. "Sharingan," Sasuke thought as he looked at his sensei in confusion. Mito didn't even blink. She had known Kakashi for a long time, not well of course, but he had regularly visited their house. As such, she knew he had a Sharingan, the bloodline of the Uchiha clan, hidden under his lopsided forehead protector. Kakashi ignored his student's stare as he lifted his lopsided headband to show his left eye, revealing an eye with a red iris, black pupil, and 3 black tomos. Seeing this, Sasuke's hands clenched in anger, while Mito looked away and instead tried to focus on the other signatures she had sensed approaching. Sharingan? What does that do? Sakura asked. She knew of the bloodline, but she didn't know what it did. Ah, the Sharingan, I get to see it so early. I'm honored. Zabuza said mockingly, even as he bent his legs slightly, preparing to lunge into action. It is said some eyes have the power to defeat any nin, jin, or taijutsu style. The Sharingan is one of these. But that's not all. Sasuke answered, the slightest hints of smugness seeping into his voice as he spoke about his clan's prized bloodline. That's right, the most feared ability of the Sharingan is that it can copy its opponent's abilities and make it their own. Zabuza finished. When I was on Mist's assassination team, your name was one that was feared, Kakashi, but it seems you have met your match. I need that bridge builder dead, he said as he jumped and grabbed his sword from the tree. It seems I will have to beat you first. Zabuza continued before he disappeared in a burst of speed. The 3 Genin and 9 Shadow clones quickly tightened their protective formation around Tazuna with their kunais out, even as Mito continued to focus on her sensory ability. Opening her eyes with shock and a slight amount of fear, Mito called out to Kakashi, "Sensei, the other 3 signatures are very close now." And they were. Mito could feel them, and what she felt truly frightened her. The closest signature was one that felt quite powerful. It radiated large amounts of chakra that were at least high chunin level. The others, though, were the ones that truly frightened her. 2 of the signature would rank at maybe mid-jonin level, not as powerful as Kakashi's or Zabuza's, but a lot more than Sakura and Sasuke possessed. But it was the last one that frightened her. She knew that due to her having the QB sealed in her and her Uzumaki heritage, that she possessed for more chakra than a normal person, more than even Kakashi had. But the approaching person possessed more than her, and unlike hers, this person's was completely controlled. If she were to compare it in sheer density and power, she would liken it to either Hifather's or Jiraiya's chakra. Mito wished that she could be able to sense more about the incoming shinobi, but her control over her sensory abilities were not at that level yet. Her mother had told her that with the right training she would soon be able to sense not just the nature of a person's chakra, but also the nature of the person themselves. But that for Mito was still some ways away. Looking up and once more engaging in the current situation, Mito's eyes widened as she realized that Zabuza was no longer visible. Instead, the area around them was slowly being covered by a chakra-dense shroud of mist. Mito, Sasuke, be on guard. This is Zabuza's hidden mist jutsu. He will use it to hide himself so he can strike us unseen. Kakashi spoke up, his main concern at the moment being over the powerful A-rank shinobi facing him, though he was still wary about the 3 other presences Mito had alerted him to. There are 8 choices on the human body that I could choose from. Zabuza's disembodied voice floated through the mist, an action that caused all the members of Team 7 to tense as they looked around. Mito's clones as nervous as the girl herself was. Liver, lung, spine, clavicle vein, neck vein, brain, kidneys, and heart. Which should I choose? Zabuza continued to question from his position within the mist. Kakashi's eyes narrowed as he looked into the mist, search for the disembodied voice. Zabuza was a master of silent killing. So remember, keep on guard. All of a sudden, the 3 genin felt the killer intent of both their sensei and enemy shoot up. Sasuke and Sakura began to shake as Mito felt a bead of sweat make its way down her face. She and her sister had been trained by their parents whilst they were still young. As such, they had felt the full and terrifying fury of their mother Kushina Uzumaki. As such, she was a lot more accustomed to KI than her teammates. So this is 2 Jonin doing battle? Sasuke questioned. Before, he thought the air is so heavy, one could go mad in here. I almost want to end it just to be away from here. Upon thinking this, his hand holding his kunai began to shake uncontrollably. Come on, Sasuke, it is time for you to man up. This is it. This is what we spent the last 3 years training for. Don't be a wuss at the first chance of real action. Mito spoke out through gritted teeth as her eyes flickered to Sasuke, hoping to bait her teammate into finding his nerve. Pathetic. Zabuza's voice snarled before with a swirl of mist he appeared near the genin. Twirling around, Kakashi moved fast, his kunai already in hand as he turned to face Zabuza. But by then Mito's reflexes had already kicked in. The slight chakra spike Zabuza caused with his appearance was all the warning she needed, as both her and 3 of her clones acted on instinct and thrust their kunai forward, impaling Zabuza in 4 different places. Splash! Zabuza's body turned into water before it broke apart, revealing itself to in fact be a water clone dispelled from Mito's strike. Mito, though, was trying to keep her resolve as she felt multiple spikes of chakra appearing from within the mist. Zabuza soon made his presence known again as he appeared behind and slashed him with his blade, only for Kakashi's body to turn to water, revealing that he had also been a water clone. It's over, Kakashi said as he once again appeared behind Zabuza with a kunai to the man's neck. How you wish. Zabuza muttered, a smirk on his face behind his mask. Before either of them could say or do anything else, though, they both moved in blurs, jumping apart as a sudden shower of shuriken landed where they had been stood previously. What? Kakashi thought as he looked to where his team was still standing, a frown on his face as he realized that they had not been the ones who had interrupted the fight. Zabuza also frowned as he looked at the shuriken embedded into the ground before he looked around. Haku! Zabuza shouted, only for a blur to appear next to him. The shinobi was dressed in a black kimono with blue trimming. The person's face was covered with a white mask with the symbol of Kirigakure on the top of it. 2 bangs fell in front of the mask with the rest of it tied behind the person's back. A scarf-like piece of cloth was tied as a belt around the person's waist, and the person had sandals on. Since no skin could be shown, nobody could tell what gender this person was at first glance. A Kirigakure Hunter-nin? Kakashi, as he backed away, knew he was once again in front of his team of genin. Mito frowned at that. This she recognized was the high Chunin-level shinobi that had been hanging around quite close to them. But Kakashi named them to be a Hunter-nin, a shinobi who specialized in hunting down and killing rogue shinobi. Yet this shinobi did not appear aggressive to Zabuza, who himself was a missing nin from Kirigakure. In fact, the Hunter-nin almost seemed submissive and had appeared when Zabuza called. Yes, Master Zabuza. The now named Haku replied in a bland and emotionless voice. Were you the one to interfere? Zabuza asked as he kept a wary eye on Kakashi. No, I do not know where those shuriken came from. Haku replied calmly. You're not a real Hunter-nin, are you? Kakashi stated rhetorically as he assessed the newcomer. Oh, how truly astute of you, Kakashi Hatake. A mocking female voice called out from the surrounding misty forest. Hefting his large 6-foot sword, Zabuza glared around him, looking for where the voice was coming from, using his own limited sensory abilities to help, with Kakashi doing exactly the same thing. Mito did the same, though with her abilities she soon locked onto the 3 power chakra signatures she had felt before. All 3 were here, all of them so close it was almost suffocating. Kakashi-sensei, they are. Mito began, only to stop as a shuriken slammed into the ground at her feet. Kakashi Hatake, we will give you this one warning. Leave the area now and take your genin team with you. Do that and we won't have a problem? A different voice spoke out. This one was soft-spoken male. And how can I trust you if you won't even show your face? Kakashi called out as he continued trying to lock onto the voice. However, due to Zabuza's hidden mist jutsu still being in effect, he was finding that very difficult, even with the Sharingan. You are telling Kakashi to go, which mean you are most likely here for me. Zabuza suddenly called out. Kakashi has a high bounty than me, which means you are not bounty hunters, and the only reason someone would have to come after me if not for the bounty would be because of my old affiliation with Kirigakure. You are huntinines, are you not? Oh, he is a clever one, isn't he? The female voice spoke out again. True, but when has being clever ever saved someone's life? A different male voice asked, with this one filled with humor, as if he found this entire situation hilarious. I will repeat what I said earlier, leave this place, Kakashi, or what happens next will be on your head. The soft yet confident male voice spoke up again. And as I said, I will not trust your word until you reveal yourselves. Kakashi replied stubbornly, knowing as he did so that if he and his team were to retreat, then it was possible these unknown shinobi would attack them from behind. For all he knew, they could be some of Zabuza's other accomplices. Then we have a stalemate. The same voice as before replied blandly.
That is the end of the video. Comment ramen if you got this far, and I will see you in the next video.